Ron Darling back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Ron?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thanks for having me back on again.
Oh, always love chatting with you, Ron. Let's get right into it. I despise the shift, and I think it is causing more strikeouts in the game, Ron. I think more and more guys are trying to hit it over it or hit it harder through it, and they're not skilled enough, quite frankly, to put the bat on the ball. I'm wondering what you think.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you with this. If you're trying to speed up the game, have guys put the ball in play more, trying to keep the game more like the integrity of the game, I think it'd be great to keep. I don't see. There's been shifting forever, okay? A second baseman will shift in a little different position depending on what's going to be thrown. But to be able to put 8 people on one side of the baseball, aesthetically it looks ugly. It's not fun to watch. And does it serve a purpose? Absolutely. Every kid that's 6 years old now will never get a base hit on the ground to the right side of the infield if they're a left-handed hitter. So if that's what they want to create, then that's certainly what they've created.
But the answer I get back whenever I'm railing about it is that, well, then these guys should hit them where they ain't. But I don't think Casey Stengel said bunt them where they ain't. Like, that's not what I want to see a power hitter do, Ron. That's,
and I think also, I think that anyone says, hit it the other way probably has not tried to make a living at hitting. It's a very difficult thing to do, and to be able to say, hey, they're playing on this side, so I'm just going to hit a ground ball through the shortstop hole. Well, that just it's not easy to do. It's a very difficult thing to do. So, you hope that at the ground level, between 10 years old, 12 years old, whatever, they're being taught maybe to hit the ball from coast to coast, right field line or left field line, but I doubt it. I think what we've produced is that we're going to pay you if you can strike people out, and we're going to pay you if you can hit the ball over the fence. And so players that are being taught how to play today are being taught in that way.
So what do you think the fix is? Do you think, or let me put it this way, do you think a fix is necessary, Ron?
I think a fix is necessary in the sense that I don't see a sport staying as popular or getting more popular. That's really what you're trying to do, right? With so much inactivity. There's just not enough happening within a baseball game unless you catch one of those rare ones where there's a lot happening. To keep the attention, I think, of the new fan. Now, listen, guys my age, they're going to watch baseball until they're in a box, right? Because they love the little nuances of the game. Even though it's changed, they can still find enough in there to pique their interest. But for the new fan who wants to see some folks beat each other to a pulp or want some instant action and all that kind of stuff, baseball certainly is not providing it right now.
Ron Darling here on the Rich Eisen Show. How much are the Dodgers in trouble, or do you think that there's still enough baseball left here, Ron?
Well, there's definitely enough baseball left, and they've got the foundation of some really talented players that can turn this around. Now, let's not forget they got off to a slow start last year, but they went 53-9 over a 62-game stretch. That's probably not going to happen again, right? So I think the problem you have with the Dodgers is, the obvious ones. You're missing Turner, you're missing Seager on the left side of your defense and offense. That hurts. But you also have some guys that had years like they never really anticipated. Not the Dodgers or the players themselves, with Chris Taylor and Cody Bellinger, and trying to match that is a very difficult thing to do. Their best pitcher, maybe the best pitcher in the game, is out. There's a lot of things working against them. That being said, they still have some really good players. I think Arizona's done them a favor by coming back to the pack. So there is plenty of time. But when you're watching your team and your team's playing, well, then you say, hey, we're going to have a shot. But I think anyone who's watching the Dodgers right now is not seeing that. So it's going to have to be a radical shift in how they're playing the game.
Well, and in terms of the Dodgers' woes this weekend, the Reds, who couldn't do anything right, come in, sweep them 4 games. Now they just have only 2 fewer wins than the Dodgers have all year. And Matt Harvey was part of the positives. How bizarre was it for you to see Matt Harvey in a Reds uniform? Ron?
Well, the most bizarre part of it, I think, for me, was when he had the interview with I think it was the Cincinnati press. It might have been the national press, and boy, it was like a weight had been lifted off him. He didn't even seem like the same person that had been with the Mets the last couple of years, where he had, for whatever reason, many reasons, a cloud kind of hanging over his performance and himself. Listen, I'm happy for him. I want him to be a great player again because the sport was better when he was the Dark Knight. But he's going to have to be a little different. And, taking that alpha male macho pitcher and making him into a different kind of pitcher has been tried by many. And there's only a few that get through. And it's because of how hard it is to make that transition. And you couple that with a couple of surgeries that he's had also. He's got a lot of work ahead of him. I think having some new eyeballs and someone else to talk to about how to get there, I think is a positive thing for him. And, Cincinnati is let's just say it's a quieter town, and it'll allow him to maybe work on his craft as much as he needs.
A few more minutes with Ron Darling here on the Rich Eisen Show, and your history of being in fascinating clubhouses, Ron, and being around others as a professional broadcaster. Where does David Price not being able to throw, allegedly because he played too many video games with his pitching hand, rank for you, Ron? Where does that anything come close? Any other stories?
Yeah, that's up there with the burning yourself, ironing the shirt on your body. That's the story I heard. The pulling on of the hurting the knee by pulling on the cowboy boot. I've heard just about all of them. But it does kind of make sense, video games are very important to a lot of young players and or older players. Price has been around for a long time, but to have carpal tunnel and it affect your pitching, to me, is one I hadn't heard before.
Was there an Atari in the Shea locker room or something like that, Ron?
No Ataris. The guys of my generation played cards. That was their thing. Okay. Cards from the second they got in the clubhouse to sometimes after the games. So I guess the shuffling of the cards and the dealing of the cards are less wear and tear on the fingers.
Who was the best card player you ever played with then, Ron?
The best card player, I think that Kevin McReynolds was probably the best card player. Yeah, because he was one of those guys.
He had a poker face.
Guy.
He couldn't tell, right?
You could not tell. He had a poker face, and I think the best thing that he had is that he usually had the showdown with Lenny Dykstra. So there was definitely a competitive edge for Kevin.
Oh, come on now. Got it. Give me a little bit more meat on that bones with Dykstra.
They just would play gin, and they'd play gin and play gin out. And let's just say that major checks exchanged hands at the end of every season, and it's usually Kevin and his family who ended up with a nice new car.
Well, I guess, while we're on this subject and the Supreme Court allowing sports betting on the state level, from what it seems like, how do you think that's going to affect Major League Baseball? We had one caller calling wondering if that might change Pete Rose's fortune by the end of the day. Ron?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change Pete Rose's fortune because of the certain rules that were in place then. But, Rich, I'm always, these state governments are so mismanaged and ill-run that anytime they can get a revenue source, it's almost like, who really cares about the collateral damage? Let's just get this in place so we can get some money. And I think that there's so many layers to this. My first thought that I had was that a lot of people are going to think because LeBron James and other people, they make so much money that they would never be tempted by a gambler. But what about the journeyman wide receiver who was in his last year and hasn't really made it and has an option of catching the ball or not catching the ball if he's of that ilk? Those are the things that I think about when I think about just allowing this to happen, unfettered, unthought about, and not thought through. And so, is it going to hurt the integrity of sport? Well, I would say that there's more of a chance now than there was before.
Last one for you, Ron. We had Keith Hernandez on the other day.
Yeah.
And he's a Twitter fiend right now, Ron. I mean, his cat Haji is a star, and I'm wondering how that sits with you, the rest of the SNY crew, and obviously somebody who played with Keith for all those years, Ron.
Well, let me just say, the guy that I work with now is not the guy I played with. The guy I played with was an amazing player, very serious about his craft. He has become incredibly funny, open, and I'm sure he talked about his new book that's coming out on your show. And I've read it already, and you're going to have to pick it up. It's a great kind of story, not only of his family, but also how hard it is to become a major league player. He became an MVP player, but his internet sensation is this is what I love about social media, is that, and I think Keith would agree, hopefully he'd agree, he has absolutely no idea what he's doing on social media, and he's become a star. So I think that to me is the bottom line, is that he is just in it and got in it, and the next thing you know, he's a star, and he wouldn't be able to tell you the first reason why, but I think it's because he's just an original personality. I've never met anyone like him, and I think people enjoy his take on everything.
And yet you're not so inspired to get your own Twitter situation, Ron, right?
I don't know. I just feel like it's my first bounce pass into unemployment, to tell you the truth, Rich. I think I'm deathly afraid of social media. Now I'll get on it and I'll follow people like yourself to get some information and all that kind of stuff. But as far as participating with the back and forth with fandom or friends or whatever, that honestly scares me to death. I'm not a complete misanthrope, but I have tendencies. So the social media would not be my favorite.
See, I mean, and then what Keith's doing with it kind of blows up the axiom of like, well, if you don't want to be social, just get a cat. And he's done both, and it's caused him to be more social. It's very strange, Ron. It really is very, very strange.
There's a lot of cat people out there. I didn't realize that till now. Yes.
Ron, love our chats. You take care. We'll chat again soon, hopefully.
Awesome, Rich. Take care.
You guys, Ron Darling.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.